Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled stalwart devotees who have come through a hurricane to attend the Japa circle called Make Japa Great Again. And I just want to make a few points today about willpower. And in his teachings on Japa, our Srila Prabhupada writes about the essence of how to chant great Japa. And as we've discussed before, we want to work in such a way that Krishna will want to see us. And the most essential time to do this is during Japa. It defines the rest of our life, of our day, of our existence, how we do Japa. And the purpose of having these meetings is to come to a decision to make Japa great. I will refer this morning to a small monograph. Well, monographs are small. It's called Good to Great and the Social Sectors. This was written by Jim Collins, who also wrote the book From Good to Great about corporations. But he also wrote about the social sector because they're slightly differently motivated than corporations are. And I'm also going to quote from a book I got from the U.S. Marine Corps called War Fighting, because in another way, our decision to chant Japa is a kind of a declaration of war on the mind. Would you concur? Yes. So I'm going to begin by reading a short excerpt from Prabhupada's teaching. This is labeled by me, Determination and Effort. You've heard this before, but it's a foundational point in Japa, so I'm making it a jumping off point for a lot of the other sessions on Japa. And Prabhupada says in a letter, regarding your last question about the ecstatic symptoms of chanting Hare Krishna, you should know that the Hare Krishna mantra has an equal effect upon all devotees, just like the sunshine has an equal effect on everyone. But when it is covered, the sunshine has a different effect. Similarly, the influence of the Hare Krishna mantra becomes manifest when one is no longer covered by the 10 offenses to chanting. The more we become free from the 10 offenses, the more the effect of chanting becomes manifested through us. Everyone can become a great devotee being freed from the offenses 100% simply by one's determination and effort. Did everyone get that? What's the last line? Simply by determination and effort. And I want to then enter this into evidence from this book called War Fighting. It's a handbook that the U.S. Marine Corps uses to prepare for the social phenomenon called war. And this is called friction, these few paragraphs. Permission? Okay, here goes. Portrayed as a clash between two opposing wills, and think of this in the context of chanting your japa, war appears a simple enterprise. In practice, the conduct of war becomes extremely difficult because of the countless factors that impinge on it. These factors collectively have been called friction, which Clausewitz describes, he's one of the experts on war, as the force that makes the apparently easy so difficult. Friction is the force that resists all action and saps energy. It makes the simple difficult and the difficult seemingly impossible. The very essence of war as a clash between opposed wills creates friction. In this dynamic environment of interacting forces, friction abounds. Friction may be mental, as in indecision over a course of action. It may be physical, as in effective enemy fire or a terrain obstacle that must be overcome. Friction may be external, imposed by enemy action, the terrain, weather, or mere chance. Friction may be self-induced, caused by such factors as lack of a clearly defined goal, lack of coordination, unclear or complicated plans, complex task organizations or command relationships, or complicated technologies. Whatever form it takes, because war is a human enterprise, friction will always have a psychological as well as a physical impact. While we should attempt to minimize self-induced friction, the greater requirement is to fight effectively despite the existence of friction. One essential means to overcome friction is the will. I'll say that again because the door closed in right when I was about to make the point. One essential means to overcome friction is the will. The what? Will. We prevail over friction through persistent strength of mind and spirit. While striving ourselves to overcome the effects of friction, we must attempt at the same time to raise our enemy's friction to a level that weakens his ability to fight. That's us against the mind. Last paragraph. We can readily identify countless examples of friction, but until we have experienced it ourselves, we cannot hope to appreciate it fully. Only through experience can we come to appreciate the force of will necessary to overcome friction and to develop a realistic appreciation for what is possible in war and what is not. While training should attempt to approximate the conditions of war, we must realize it can never fully duplicate the level of friction of real combat. So this is the first installment of ideas that have to do with willpower in the force of friction caused by war, and the metaphor is that we're fighting a war when we decide to sit down and chant Japa, the war with our mind. So we have to develop willpower, and Prabhupada says here, by determination and effort. It must be done. I have more points to make on this in just a moment, but one of them that I'll make just before we start chanting next, and it's mentioned in this book, it's a psychological phenomenon which causes lack of willpower, which is called decision fatigue. When we have too many choices and we're trying to entertain them all at once, then we get what's called decision fatigue, and therefore we experience friction. And in practicing Krishna consciousness, Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita, vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana, and then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, tasmad ekena manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati, etc. There's a one-pointedness of mind that's necessary. No other decisions to be made. How we get to that point is very important, but that's one of the reasons we have a Japa circle. We're here purposefully. There's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. And we should focus our minds determinedly and develop the muscle called willpower. And I will talk about that in a few minutes, that it is a muscle to be developed. It's not that you're born with it or you're not born with it. It can be developed, and that's what we're doing here. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Any comment before we go on? Make one comment, please. Anything you heard.
Determination and effort are the two main things with which we should try to chant with focus.
Yes, it requires determination and effort in order to be successful in chanting Japa. One other point you heard? Yes, decision fatigue. You have to overcome decision fatigue. So there's a condition called psychological atheism. Although one may be a theist philosophically and say, I believe in God, when it comes to our internal workings, I may then avoid God because I have my own life and I'm separate. I want my own happiness and separate from God. And this is a psychological condition described in the Bhagavatam. Payam tvitiya binibeshatasya. I become absorbed in all those things that are separate from Krishna. I keep a separate life and so forth. Of course, it's a miserable existence, and it's one in which fear arises in the heart of the devotee. So the cure for this is to have direct experience of Krishna and how beautiful he is. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Paraṁ vijayate śrī-kṛṣṇa-saṅkīrtanam. The process for attaining this direct experience is through Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy names. And the first phenomena that occurs when fully concentrates on this is Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the mirror of the heart. So we can actually see Krishna directly, and we can see ourselves. Of course, if we don't see the sun, we don't see ourselves. If we don't see Krishna, we don't see ourselves either, because we're part and parcel of him. So the answer for those who wish to overcome the great hurdle of birth and death, bhava, material existence, bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. Nirvapanam means like in nirvana, when something is completely overcome, it's extinguished. How to extinguish this darkness and the psychological atheism that's pervasive in my mind and heart is through the process of Sankirtan. So in the concept of good to great, 10 being great japa, and anything less than that being good or progressively worse as you go down the number line from 10. Where would you say, we'll take a few samples, you are right now on the number line in your japa, and what is the obstacle that's keeping you from being a 10? We'll take 4 volunteers, 2 from this side and 2 from this side. Please volunteer for extra points and free prasadam later. Prabhu?
I would say mine is probably 0.0001. I have many obstacles, but least of which is waking up early, associating in chanting in the association of devotees is what I'm aspiring for, which I know for sure will certainly propel me towards that 10. So that's what I'm working towards.
Okay. Sounds like a pretty humble assessment, but the one of the goals you have is very practical, to be in association with devotees when chanting, which is you find to be very helpful. It's good to know what the obstacles are, what the clear goals are to make japa great again. Okay, now one from this side. Where are you on the number line? 10 is great japa. Anything less than that is less than that. And what's the obstacle that you can name? It's helpful to just to speak it, because others will identify and resonate with it also. Yes.
I would say mine would be between 3 and 4. And I have many obstacles, but 2 of them which I can very well see is that when we chant, instead of absorbing ourselves in the holy name at that point, I have that goal in my mind, okay, I have to chant these many numbers of rounds. So it's more motivated by how many rounds I want to chant than actually absorbing myself in chanting. And the second would be to have a dedicated time to chant, that we tend to think, okay, we have the entire day to chant, and procrastinate chanting that way.
Thank you. Helpful to, in any management situation, write down what the obstacles are, because then you can start thinking how to overcome them. If they're amorphous or they're just banging around in your head, it's hard to deal with them directly. Thank you for sharing. And one more from this side. Okay, we have 2 more.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I would rate my chanting maybe 4 out of 10. It's progressing little by little, but I need all Vaishnavas' prayers to improve. The obstacles that I see in my chanting is being inattentive, like the mind gets distracted. One of the reasons for getting distracted is I identify that sometimes anxieties, and that anxiety comes from attachment to material possessions, be it related to job or some things that I have to do, and if things go off track a little bit, that causes anxiety and that causes mind absorbed while chanting also. But the prayers help, but still it's an obstacle that is causing me to be inattentive, or obstacle from absorption.
Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing that. It was very deeply philosophical insight.
Prabhu, what brought me to ISKCON was to build more resilience and mindful and bring more peace. I would say my faith in Krishna is still evolving, and spending time with all the devotees here helps a lot in strengthening the faith. Although I would say my faith is still very low, and I still look at other people and material comforts to calm myself down. But when I spend time here, I find the vibes in this room extremely calming, and spending time with all the devotees here is helping me develop and increase my faith in Krishna. I don't do 16 rounds of Japa either, but I'm trying to gradually increase my practice. I'm at 7 rounds a day, and hopefully one day I'll get to 16.
Haribol. You mentioned about material comforts, and one of the ways that the Bhagavad Gita helps us is to remind us that there are no real material comforts. It's a misnomer, actually. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yone evate adyantavanta konte anate shuramate buddha. Ultimately, we don't get real comfort from our material situation, but we get the ultimate comfort from taking shelter of Krishna. When the mind sees what's the real self-interest, it's helpful to be focused. And in the matter of good to great, if I can go on with this track, I just want to bring out a point from this book called Good to Great and the Social Sectors. And the author talks about, in a very practical sense, in the social sectors, means nonprofit organizations, churches, and so forth, just as in any other group of organizations in the for-profit sector. There are some organizations that are very good, but there are those that are distinguished as being great. And he says similarly in the social sectors, there are those that are great. And just this last paragraph I'm going to read. He says, I do not mean to discount the systemic factors facing the social sectors. They are significant and they must be addressed. Still, the fact remains, we can find pockets of greatness in nearly every difficult environment, whether it be the airline industry, education, healthcare, social ventures, or government-funded agencies. Every institution has its unique set of irrational and difficult constraints, yet some make a leap while others, facing the same environmental challenges, and that's in italics, do not. This is perhaps the single most important point in all of good to great. Greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice and discipline. This is from someone who is empirically studying the various organizations in the profit and nonprofit sections, and this is the conclusion of his book, that it comes down to conscious choice and discipline. So we have to develop this sense of, I have to overcome my obstacles, and the only resort is Krishna, and Krishna is present in his name. And when we're fully focused, then we can move to the level of greatness. And even amidst all kinds of obstacles, he said, we can find, do you remember the phrase? Pockets of greatness. Our lives may be a maelstrom of problems, but if we focus on our japa, we can find pockets of greatness, or a pocket of greatness in our day. And from that, all the other forms of success will expand. Paraṁ vijayate śrī-kṛṣṇa-saṅkīrtanam. Just one or two reflections about anything I said now. Yes, Sukeshwari.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just driving the other day and I was just thinking that how, I navigate through the freeway and the stop signs and reach my destination. I also have to navigate my mind. My goal is to reach Krishna, and I have to make sure that I make the right turns, as you said, make right choices, and have the right map. Don't choose the wrong map. Sometimes Apple Maps, Google Maps, they have different ways that they try to avoid the traffic and reach. So I was just trying to think that even in my life, I should try to get the right association, the right books, go in the right direction to reach the goal rightly. So it's all about making the right choices. I just want to say.
Thank you. Yes.
Maharaj, in the beginning, you made a point about the sunshine being equal to everyone.
Yeah, that's Prabhupada's point, yeah.
Yeah, to the extent like we are covering the sunshine, then the effect may vary. Similarly, the Hare Krishna mantra is very powerful and is equal to everyone. But to the extent we are covered by different anarthas, offenses, aparadh, the effect may vary. So,
yes,
really
thanks for bringing that out. There's a parallel in what Prabhupada said and in this last paragraph. I didn't read the whole section because it's a little long. But the author points out that in the social sector, he interviewed many different organizations, and they all gave reasons why they couldn't be successful. The healthcare costs were too high. There were various other obstacles he mentioned. And he said, however, even amidst that, there were organizations that did extremely well. And they found pockets of greatness. They were able to work around the various obstacles. So similarly, we all face the same obstacles, perhaps to different degrees because of our past. But Prabhupada says in the paragraph that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is equal to everybody. And it's just a matter of us reforming ourselves and overcoming our individual obstacles to rise to the level of greatness. How to get from a 3 or 4 or 6 to a 10 in Japa, at least for one mantra, we should strive to come to a 10 every day. And if we're not improving, then we're getting worse because there's no staying the same. So the point is, it's a matter of, Prabhupada says, effort and determination. So we should have that every day when we chant Japa. So let's try for a few more minutes to hit that one point of a 10 in chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Japa Circle. And just one last quick comment from the Shikshashtakam. Shri Kairava Chandrikavitaranam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives this analogy of a lotus flower, but it's a special kind, Kairava. It's a species of lotus that blooms at night. Most bloom in the daytime in the hot sun. So the implication here is that in Kali Yuga, it's the darkest time. However, this good fortune, Shreya, means it's the root is Shri, the opulence. All Shreya, or the great opulence, will unfold in our lives by the process of chanting Hare Krishna, especially in Kali Yuga, because it's a dark age. We've been given a dispensation. So this is the place in which one can place one's full attention. And it's worth making that our focal point for greatness in life is chanting Hare Krishna. Vanchakoplurvishcha kripasindhabe vachapatitanam bhavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnavini ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol.